Hello.
Okay.
Good afternoon, everybody. So good to see you all here for this Lunch and Learn, where we have the pleasure of Quallie AI joining us. This is the second time that they are here, so the setup is a little bit different. They already did sort of a deep dive platform exploration the last time. And if you're interested, you can definitely see that back on the ICG website. But today they will be talking more about what is happening in the market for freelancers and independent consultants. So without further ado, I'll give the word to both of you. They will speak for about 15 minutes, and there will be plenty of time to ask questions afterwards. So you can post your questions in the chat, or just also feel free to put on your camera and just share it live. Have fun.
Thank you, Barbara. Thank you all for being here. Thanks, ICG, for having us back. My name is Marco. I'm the co-founder of Quallie AI, and I've been myself an independent insights consultant for the past 8 years. Today, I'm joined by Mehmed. Ed is a seasoned insights leader who's worked across strategy, innovation, and transformation projects for the past 20 years. He's been managing director at What If Innovation, Accenture, and Butterfly, and now works independently. Ed lives and breathes insights. He advises insights leaders, runs interviews himself, builds insights teams, and always has a sharp point of view on what's going on in our field. So thank you, Ed, for being here. I'm excited to discuss the strategy swamp with you.
Yeah, me too. Thanks, Marco. And great setup. Nice to be here today. Nice to see some familiar faces as well on this call. So you'll know who you are. I'm going to share a deck, and really it's a personal point of view about what I see happening in the consulting market. So treat it, I would say, as provocation, and think about what that means for your own work and your own practice. Okay. And then there will be time for reflection and time for questions as well. And you can ask questions as we go. So we're all sort of friends really on this call. So yeah, just come off mute and just ask the question. Or if you're less confident, use the chat, and then somebody else from the team can just keep a monitor on that, if that's okay. So,
and Ed's, can I just jump in before we start?
Of course.
A quick word from our sponsor. Today's webinar is brought to you by Quallie AI. Quallie is a tool for insights professionals to analyze qualitative research, from in-depth interviews to focus groups, without losing the human touch. As Barbara mentioned, there's a full demo of the platform on a previous webinar. Quallie uses AI in a smart way to automate some of the boring tasks and give us more time for thinking and doing the work that matters. This means transcriptions, translation, an intuitive grid interface, AI answers that are always tied back to the original quote and video. So you can make your insights reels and bring your reports to life. If you want to check it out, go to Quallie AI, click on Get Access. We have a free trial and discounted rate for ICG members. Without further ado, back to you, Ed. Let's talk about the strategy swamp.
Thank you, Marco, friend and sponsor. So is everybody seeing the sort of jumping off slide here? You can all see that, wicked. Okay, great. So this has been framed as like, what does it take to rise up from what has been referred to as the strategy swamp? You might not like that term, but it certainly resonated with me. Let me just, sorry, I don't know why that's, yeah, here we go. So a lady called Zoe Scarman, who runs her own independent consultancy called Bodacious, she's quite vocal on LinkedIn, and it's one of those people who, when they write, I always listen. I read every single word of what they write, and often I find myself nodding like furiously, my head almost sort of falling off its shoulders, because she just hits the mark. So about 4 months ago, she wrote a piece that said, look, there's a quiet crisis playing out across our industry, and it's starting to scream. Freelancers are flooding the market, not by choice, but by force, laid off, burnt out, or boxed out of a shrinking set of full-time roles. The gigs that do appear tend to be underpaid, definitely over-applied for, and are gone within hours. We're in what I've started calling the strategy swamp. It's dense, overgrown. Everybody's stuck in the same place, chasing the same work, with the same deck and the same value proposition. A bog of sameness and no one's winning. All right, so this was her provocation. So I guess my question to you is, does that sound familiar? Have you heard others in your network, even if you haven't experienced that? Does it ring true? The few nods I can see. Okay. Few people nodding. Right, so I don't want to steal Zoe's thinking, because that would be really disingenuous and the wrong thing to do. So what I would say is go and read her blog called Going Solo, which is her Substack, what she went through when she set up on her own and how she thinks she needs to survive in today's world. And it's spot on. Again, read all of those talking notes and it's spot on. So you can go and see that. So it's called Going Solo. There's a little link to it there. I'll share the deck afterwards as well. Okay. Now, in my own words, what I see happening, and it wouldn't be a provocation if we didn't talk about AI, but I think AI is going to have a bigger shift than COVID did on the way we work, right? And we're probably already starting to feel that. And you go, no shit, of course, right? Especially in creative services, but also professional services. And I've found that myself, right? I've come out of Accenture as a managing director. I worked at What If for 15 years. I worked at Accenture for 9 in total, post-acquisition as well for 3. And I worked in a small agency for a couple of years. Like, when I've come out, there are no senior jobs. It's not that I'm picky and I don't want to apply for senior jobs in agencies, in consultancies. There are none, right? And that's pretty grim. So I've been forced into what I would call freelancing. And I'll tell you a bit more about that in a bit, right? When I do see businesses hiring, the only 2 businesses that are hiring, which I think is a mirror back of society, are tech and platform businesses and media businesses, right? Both these sectors, myself, they give me the ick, right? They are basically feeding what I call outrage economy, the attention economy, social media at large, convenience economy, like I want it now, I need it now, I'm going to press the button on my phone. These are all, to my mind, that if they're the only people hiring, crikey, what's going on, right? And I think there's a bigger thought here, which is like, in a digital media landscape, we're actually consumers before we're a citizen. And I think that's something that probably, it's a bigger conversation and probably we've got time for. But that's quite interesting, this sort of mirror back of society. The other thing is that professional services businesses are either holding off hiring or they're definitely restructuring teams, making them flatter, driven by this promise of AI, productivity or efficiency gains, and integrating some tooling into their workflows. At the same time, clients are less brave. So the more ambitious, ill-defined, riskier innovation, growth, research, insights work, it tends to get squeezed out in favor of fixing problems, things that we know are screaming at us in our business that we need to go and fix. Client teams themselves are being restructured, makes them leaner and more resource constrained. And then here's what I think is really, really interesting, and what I've found in my work is I'm very clear when I'm talking to the client early. Are you trying to get work done? That means you're buying capacity or you're buying capability. And sometimes they're buying both. I mean, it's really interesting as the independent consultant to know, are you just using me, I mean that in a nice way, as a vehicle to get something done because you can't do it, or because you have no headspace or time to do it, or actually a bit of both, right? I think that's, again, a really interesting framing. And then I think it's likely in the future for freelancers is that expertise is going to be pointed at business critical activities. And it's just something that the client needs help moving on. Okay. My own story, I've sort of talked about that a bit. It is accidental. I should not be freelancing. I should not be an independent, right? I've got kids in school that is fee paying. I've got aging parents who have no money and no pensions on both sides, I might add, married into and my own. I've at an age where I should be, in a corporate job, probably, making good salary and putting a bit away for tomorrow. I'm of that age. But yet here I am, right? I've never been financially less secure, but more happy in my work, okay? And then when I came out of Accenture, in this case, and then out of Butterfly, my biggest fear was really that I wouldn't get to answer great questions again. Right? If I really, I talked to a coach about it, talked about what my values were, did all the good work, but really my biggest fear was all my best work was going to be in my rear view mirror, out from under the umbrella of a What If brand, an Accenture brand, or more recently worked with Butterfly. I just wouldn't get access to those types of client questions, and that I was done for. Okay, and then what I've tried to do is sort of reframe. Well, what actual business am I in? Like, if I was a product and you were buying me, what marketplace do I sit in? And I think this is my provocation to everybody: is don't be obsessed with projects, right? Projects is a vehicle for you to have some time-bound work, and it's where our day rates live. But we're not in the projects business, right? I don't think I'm in the projects business. I'm in the helping clients with new thinking business, right? And that might sound trite, might sound like a t-shirt slogan, but once I think like that, I'm help clients surface new thinking, shape new thinking, build excitement and commitment to it with internal teams, land it with paying customers, I commercialize it, and I scale it. And insights is part of that work, right? Doing primary insights work gives me a voice, right? But if I start thinking that I'm in the projects business, it's too small and narrow, right? Why? Because the person sat opposite me in the chair, the client, it's about their bloody career. It's about their reputation. They're hiring me to get something done, right? That's not a freaking project, right? That's their career. It's their livelihood. It's their rep, right? Projects are too transactional. We end up drifting into this idea of my build days, not what do you actually need to get done, right? And it starts to become more important than outcomes, is how many days. And then the other bit is it anchors you to an agency consulting world, right? They have large teams, benches, resources. They can throw bodies at stuff. You're you, right? Yes, networked, but you're just you. So I want my clients' buying experience to be a very personal one. You're buying me. You're not buying a company, right? I want to draw a line under that and say why that is different and how that is different. That should feel different. It shouldn't just be something you say. It should be about how you show up. And then what I've done is I've sort of moved into this type of work, which is essentially doing the same work but working differently, right? Is I use curiosity as my superpower, right? And again, that could sound like a t-shirt slogan. What it means is I don't have to respond to managing a team now, right? I don't have a commute, or rarely. I don't have swathes of email. I had about 10,500 unread emails when I left Accenture. 10,500, imagine that, right? I don't have their systems, so I don't have to go through like multiple hoops to book a flight or book a train, right? Or go and meet someone or go and see someone. So once you're out from all that deficit, right, stuff that you're carrying, you just got more energy, right? So I'd say just put that energy into curiosity. So in my case, I was like, I'm out in this swamp, in this land where everybody else is. How the hell does this guy get more interesting? And I was like, I'm going to make myself interesting. What am I interested in? I'm interested in how AI is changing our workflows and our work. And I found Marco and Domingo, bumped into them on a piece of work. And then I was like, I need to hang out with those guys. I need to know what's happening, right? I bumped into another group called Warrior Group, who do expert recruitment, what they call disruptive intelligence. And they're trying to bring experts from less heard voices. They basically said, if you're an expert, you're way more likely to put yourself on a stage if you're pale, stale, and male, right? Middle-aged men like me find themselves much more in expert mode, right? And they go, how can we hear from different voices from different parts of the world? People you won't find on Google or ChatGPT. And then Let's Go, a friend of mine, Rich, developed a model for collaboration, getting stuff done in teams. He was running an open training course, put myself up for that, something I was interested in. So across these three things, I've just picked three things, diversity of thought, AI-powered, insights, and human collaboration and alignment as three things I wanted to learn more about. And I go and hang out with those people regularly and speak to them regularly, right? And then on the right-hand side here, I develop points of view, right? I'm now writing again. I have a Substack. It doesn't have loads of followers. I write for me. It gives me something to go and talk about to clients, as does the things on the left-hand side. But really, it comes from a good place. It comes from this place of curiosity. I'm not doing it to hoodwink anyone. I'm not doing it to gain something. I'm doing it because I want to know about this stuff. Does that make sense? And then the other thing I've been really, really intentional about is what I call hanging out with your idols, right? There aren't loads of independent consulting firms out there, but I've done a sniff test. I've been around, I've met people, and I've gone, who are the businesses that I think are doing interesting work, right? Synthesis, Curious Industry, Hot Pickle, Us Two, Triptyque, and Yonder. Some of you will recognize some of these businesses. You might know people there, but that saying, your network is your net worth, again, another t-shirt slogan, it's so true, right? The value, the currency, the access is going to come from your network. So cultivate your network. And what I'm saying is I am the company that I keep. I hope that I can go and find my own work, but I'm not dumb, right? I want to also associate myself with others who do great work. And formalizing an associate program or network with these businesses allows me to bring them work and get paid for it, allows me to bring work to them and actually work it myself. And it allows them to think of me top of mind as something more than a freelancer, if that makes sense. I'm somebody who's invested in their business, who knows how they work, who knows the growth journey their business is going on, who knows where their sweet spot is and knows how I can add value to it. And that to me is the difference between being an associate for some of these businesses versus being what I would say is a gun for hire. And I'm very, very deliberate about only having 4 or 5, businesses that I want to be an associate with, quite publicly. Makes sense again. And then this sort of first 8 months of this year, I've also tried to break what I call the project delivery mode. And I was speaking to a friend, Carol, who said, the risk in freelance land is 80% of your income is through one mode, right? It's basically through you in project delivery. And you become your rate limiting factor to earn more money, right? Or to have a different life, and you see people getting burnt out. And it was great provocation because I was like, do you know what? There are loads of different ways you can buy me, right? And I've counted 15 different ways to buy outside of the project delivery mode, right? So let's start with project delivery mode in the bottom right-hand corner. You could buy me to go and lead the work, right? Us Two have done that. I did some work for them for an entire month, worked every day, loved it, right? Run the team. It's very different because all I could think about was just that for an entire month, right? The risks taking me out of my business. But I could actually just drop into a piece of work as a subject matter advisor. Don't need to be in all the work. If it's stuff I know loads about, I've done loads of projects before. And I've done both of those this year, right? But I've also earned income through being a method coach. So I do lots of futures work, have developed a futures approach. I'm coaching another agency to deliver that work using my own methodology, right? And I've been a method coach. I've also designed a safari for somebody else in China to go and deliver to a client who was traveling to Shanghai for a food expo. And around that time, they wanted to go and understand coffee culture and mobility, right? So I designed that, somebody else delivered it, but I got paid, right? I've also networked experts. I've built capability. I've earned money through referral and commissions. I've also built teams for other people. I'm doing some advisory work for businesses like Quallie and Warrior Group. And I also have pathway to equity through some of those advisory roles. So what I'm saying here is, look, I'm a resource for my client. Please don't just think of me as in a project instance. You can buy me in lots of different ways, and I can help you with your business, not just the work that you do in your business. And again, this is my sort of provocation to everyone on this call. It's like, find these other sources of value outside of project delivery where someone else is hiring you in to do a singular thing. And then lastly, just to wrap up, this idea of, I stole this from friends at Curious Industry. They don't have a business development sort of role. They talk about it as gardening, cultivating, gardening, right? Horticultural term. And this is about nurturing relationships, investing in people, their careers, and staying curious. So I always say, like, feedback is a gift. At the end of any work I've done with a client, I always ask for feedback. I'm learning about what they think my secret sauce is. right? So this is what clients say they value in me. That can be their words, right? If it helps me get out of my own way, feels a bit less cringy. It also shows you where you need to tighten. So, oh, I felt this was hard work, or this took 2 passes, or this could have been better, right? I think the power of emotion is really important. So I do public referrals through LinkedIn, always ask my clients to post that. That's what's interesting about that is this, if you don't give a structure for feedback, you always end up getting this emotional part of what they enjoyed about working with you, even if you don't ask for it. And I think that's really powerful, because taking a bet on an independent is a very personal buying experience, and it should feel different, as I said before. And then diversity of thought, probably a third of the work that I've delivered this year in terms of fees, I've given to other people, right? Which might sound crazy, but I want to work with other people. And I look at this thirds model really seriously. I kind of go, if I'm working with others, it's more enjoyable. The work is definitely going to be better. And that in itself creates a different type of energy and a generosity. So thinking of yourself as a business rather than an individual. And then lastly, it sort of reinforces all of these points as what I call the goodness engine. In networks, we all know people who are givers and people who are takers, the ones who nurture versus the ones who take and transact. I think we should just have a healthy interest in others being successful, that sort of rising tide. And I know that the universe has a habit of always paying that back. So I had a friend who was looking for a job, thinking about leaving their job. I spent an hour on the phone with them, not a coach, right? I then went and met them for lunch, kicked some stuff around. What was mad is the hour that I'd left that lunch and cycled across town, somebody who they used to work with had already called me up for a new piece of work from work I delivered 5 years ago. And I was like, that is so weird. Like, I went out of my way to help this chap, and then someone else from his team had called me. They weren't working together, hadn't worked together for about 5 years, had called me on a new piece of work. And I just think the universe does this, right? It just gifts it back. So I call that goodness. It's just about putting yourself out there and being, acting with a sort of generosity of spirit. And then lastly, just to wrap it up, my sort of subtext of all of this is it's really important to be successful, to have a point of view, develop a point of view, stuff you're interested in, and share it with the world. And then your clients will know that you're famous for that point of view, right? So that's where I wanted to pause for questions. Just wanted to see if there's anything here that resonates, or we've got questions from the floor. But I've really enjoyed my pathway into freelance, which could have been horrendous in this market, and I'm enjoying it. And I don't want to say thriving, because I don't want to tempt fate, but I'm enjoying it, right? Like I said, I've never been financially more precarious, but the work is brilliant. I've got a forward order book, and I'm enjoying the work very much.
Thank you. Thanks for sharing the experience and kind of inviting us to apply some of this transformation thinking that we often work with clients with on our own business as independents. And Barbara, you've unmuted. I guess it's time for questions. If anyone has some, feel free to jump in. And
yes, so I hope there's a little bit less background noise, but I haven't seen any questions in the chat, so everybody just feel free to unmute and post your questions or ask them in the chat. I do have a question myself, so thanks a lot, Ed, for sharing your story. Super inspiring, and I think you gave a lot of different approaches that people can take to navigate this market. But if people now are listening to this and they think, okay, I'm inspired, I'm going to do some of this, what would you recommend to be the first thing that we would do tomorrow? What has been sort of all these things, be the most helpful or rewarding?
Yeah, so I think that space around, if you lead with your thinking, right? So we're paid to, in the thinking, we that's something we're famous for. Then I think the most rewarding bit is two things: hanging out with businesses that you respect, and they're people you're like, I'm going to learn from them. They're really good, like both ways. I mean, that's just being really selective about it, the company you keep. And then the other bit is a bit like, getting interested and curious about stuff. Just pick a handful of topics that you go, I want to know loads about that, and I'm going to become an expert. And expert's too grandiose a term, right? But it's just I'm just going to go and feed myself. And use the time that you haven't got. Like, I'm exercising more now because I'm at home more, and I'm learning more. And those two things have been really important to me. And I go, if I'm doing both those things, I feel great. I'm not going to get ill. But the other thing on what I'm learning is going to fuel my point of view. When I do go and talk to clients, it's authentic. I can talk to them about disruptive intelligence, AI in professional workflows for consulting, and I can talk about collaboration, human alignment, which is where a lot of the work gets stuck. There's a question.
Thanks. Yeah, there is a question. Oh, you can read it?
Yeah. I have a question about going beyond day rates. I'm still figuring out how to charge for my value. Alternate ways are a bit blind spot for me. Yeah, so most people probably have a day rate. I don't have a day rate. I have a day range. I go, this is my aspirational day rate, and this is the one that I've been managing to hit most. And then this is the one, is my basement price. I won't go lower than that. And then I basically try to price for value outcome. On the value outcome, I kicked myself for not doing it. I took the lowest day rate I've taken this year because it was full-time work for a month. What I didn't know was the team I was working with would normally have 2 seniors above me working on the work, and they'd allowed that in their time. So the client account manager and the senior strategist. And I ended up carrying the project, which sounds like a humble brag, as I meant to, but they didn't need a lot of their senior overhead, right? Because they were just like, oh, Ed's here, he's got it. And they were like, cool, we got lucky there, right? And then they go off and spend their time doing something else. And they just turn up to the workshops. And it's not a discredit to them, right? That I would do the same, right? But what I should have done in that piece of work is gone, I'll take the day rate. If I do a good job and this work becomes profitable or it on sales, I want you to pay me my kicker, which is my actual day rate premium. And you can give that to me as a lump sum, as a bonus. And then I don't want any paperwork around it. You just do it because it's the right thing to do. I should, if I'd negotiated that, I know if I'd asked them at the end of the project, they would have done that, because they literally spent an hour each in the workshops, so 4 hours total, and about half an hour with me outside of the room. So, and that was on a 4-week sprint piece of work. Could have been a nightmare, and it wasn't. So yeah, I think that I'm going to be much more forward about negotiating those things just on a handshake.
I think that's the thing. So the amount, if you're able to do things faster than the client's able to do, then you're providing loads of value, but you're doing it faster than they are expecting. And yeah,
you don't know that until you're in it. That's the problem, isn't it? So you almost need to go, I think it's where the compromise, if I'm taking a lower rate, my normal rate's this, here are the days, like let's agree a number, could be 5K, could be 10K, or a range. If you think I've done a great job and you've made more margin, or you've just smashed it, or it leads to on sale, pay me between 5 and 10K more. Great. And again, when they're bigger businesses, they always ask about T's and C's. So I go, I don't need all of that shit. I'm one person. I was like, you're a big business. If you don't want to pay me, you won't. Whatever I write on the T's and C's is irrelevant. And I've even said that. I'm working for a large automotive firm at the moment in Germany, and they asked me what my T's and C's were. I said, you tell me what you want them to be. I was like, I'm not going to waste my time. And they were fine. They were like, oh, here's a standard one, like sign it,
Okay. That's really helpful. Thank you.
Thank you, Ed. No more questions, and I see it's almost half past. So what we'll do is we share the deck with everybody after the people, and I guess you will leave your email or so that people can connect with you afterwards.
Yeah, it's the last page of the deck actually has that in it. Yeah, it's perfect.
Fantastic. Well, thank you so much for your time. That was super interesting. Feeling more energized, people say. And thanks everybody for coming. Have a great afternoon.
Thanks for having me. Thanks for hearing me Twitter on. Cheers.
Thanks everyone.
Cheers. Bye. Bye. Perfect. Just going to check if Lucy is quitting the recording. So we have that. But that was great. Thanks.
Thanks,
you.
Barbara. Thanks, Ed.
Yeah,
Some great
Marco,
stuff.
I've got a PDF of the prez. Should I send it to you to forward on?
Yeah. Do that.
Yes. Yeah.
Wicked. Okay, thanks for having me. Really enjoyed that.
Yeah, that was cool, and I see lots of positive reactions, feedback
Yeah,
in the chat. I don't know if you can see that, so that's
lovely.
that's
Thank
great.
you.
Thank you.
Okay, have a good day.
See you in the next one. Bye.